welcome to Sportianity, a podcast where we talk about the intersection of faith and sports. And today I'm joined by André Davis. So, brother, thanks for joining me for this conversation. Look forward to talking to you.
Caleb, man, thank you so much for having me, man. This is just a blessing for us to be able to be connected in this way, and I look forward to the time that we're going to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And, maybe just share a little bit, if you had, just 2-3 minutes to share kind of your background, where you're from, what you're doing today. What would you want people to know?
First of all, I'm a son of God. Have been married to the most beautiful person that I know, my bride, André Davis, almost 23 years. This May will be 23 years. We've got 4 beautiful children. Halen, who's 18, Bryce, who just turned 16 yesterday, Ayla, who will be 13 later this in June, and then Noel, who's 11. We've got a family of 6 that keeps us busy all the time.
Yeah.
I am son to Marcia and Clement Davis, who are first generation from Jamaica. And so it's been really great for me and my siblings, my older brother Sean and my younger sister Kimberly, just to be able to be in the legacy of 2 parents who love Jesus, who grew us up in the church from early on and taught us what it meant to have a relationship with Jesus. And that allowed us to be able to go on our way through youth camps, went to the Christian camps in the summertime, and just guided us on the way to be able to go to college and find spouses for us. So I've got great in-laws. My brother-in-law, sister-in-law, and in-laws as a whole has just been amazing to see how God has knitted us all together and formed as we like to say, a village back in Delaware.
Yeah.
And it's truly been an amazing time of how God has really blessed our family. And, that's really something that I hope we get a chance to talk a little bit more just about how legacy, happens and how praying parents can really form a legacy that goes on for generations.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I do want to come back to that and, kind of move as we go across this. But I want to talk, first about sports, and then we'll move to kind of family and more faith things that way. And so, maybe I think some people may know who you are just by your name, but you and Michael Vick formed one of the most explosive duos in college football history, at least when I was a kid, watching NCAA football. And so maybe what was it like being part of that era? And how did that prepare you for the jump to the NFL?
Yeah, I know I jumped right into family, right? Faith and family. That's where we all start. So now we can talk about
That's
football,
right.
that third leg there. And so, again, God really did a number on me when it came to football. It was not the first sport that I started playing. I was a track guy growing up. My original dream was to be able to be in the Olympics. And so I remember running summer track and all of that. And then I got to high school and I didn't start playing football till my junior year in high school. So I was a late bloomer when it came to that. And the only reason why I picked football was to keep myself in shape for track. And so I thought, what are the 2 positions on the field that get hit the least so that way I can be healthy for track? And that's how I chose being a wide receiver and free safety on defense. And, little did I know that God had something else planned for me, playing football, and was able to earn a scholarship to get to Virginia Tech. And as you said, got the great opportunity to be able to play with Michael Vick back in, what was that, 1999 and 2000 to play. And, what a dynamic combination that was. A guy that really was an electric college football player.
Yeah.
Had the speed, had the arm. We just had really not just us, but the whole team as a whole had a bunch of guys who were, I wouldn't say were top prospects, a lot of 5-star guys. I think there was probably a lot of, 3-star guys that we had on the team who just understood the work ethic that it took to get to where we needed to get to. And so it was a lot of fun as we tried to outdo each other on the offense, defense, special teams. We really had, one of those special moments in time where all 3 phases of the game were just outstanding. And it gave us the opportunity to play in a national championship where we fell short to Florida State.
Yeah. I remember that. And I did not cry. I've been a TCU fan my whole life, but so I've had plenty of crying moments myself. But it was, yeah, I do remember that. I'm sure that was a really formative time. And as you think about that time in your life, was there a particular coach or chaplain or pastor that really helped you as you're transitioning from being at home to kind of on your own for the first time?
Absolutely. It was a gentleman by the name of Reed Monahan, who was part of Athletes in Action at the time, and still a really good friend of mine, who helped guide me as an individual, helped me to understand my platform, and helped me how to really form my testimony and how to use this platform of football to really be able to share the gospel. I think for many of us, we know how popular a sport football is, and
Yeah,
I realized in the moment of going through it, and as well as we were doing, people always wanted to have an opportunity to speak with you in an interview or conversations. And
sure.
this was an opportunity for us to be able to say, all right, Lord, you've gotten us in the door this far. Yes, we can sit here and we can share our football accomplishments and talk football all day, but how can we actually glorify you in the midst of this success that we're having here on the field? And so Reed discipled me, helped me to understand my platform, helped me to understand my story and how God was using me in the midst of this moment. And it really became something special. Me and a couple of other players on the team who were believers, to be able to share our gospel, to share the gospel in the midst of the success that the team was having. And it really was a great time to see how Athletes in Action grew, not just on our team, but across campus.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, that's great because I think for a lot of athletes, you come into college and you have. I know this was kind of a shock for me. It's like sports is a huge time commitment until like you're playing it at that level, and then you realize like, man, when am I going to fit in? I used to be able to go to whatever group or Bible study or church on Sunday, and now my schedule is just insane. So to be able to have ministries like that at least during the season can kind of fill that gap when you're not able to be as connected to the body of Christ and the church in those ways is really impactful. And just encouragement to Christian athletes to take those opportunities because it's hard to be able to be maybe as committed as you would want to, but those can be lifelines really. I know for me, our FCA leader in college, he would do Bible studies on the field, like after practice, on Thursdays, and that was really huge for me. And he's the reason I stayed really connected to the local church and didn't become kind of lost in the pressure and sieve all those things during that time of my life. So
Yeah, yeah. And I also, I would be remiss to tell people that there weren't any challenges along the way. I
sure,
think you can, hear the testimony and say, oh, hey, legacy, and your parents were believers, and you grew
yeah,
up, went to Christian camp, and all of these
that's right,
things. You're like, dang, like that must have
yeah,
been an easy life. And it's like, oh no, I was walking that line, through high school and in college, and still going to parties and all of that stuff. And having to figure it out, on my own, and going from, trusting my parents' faith, and,
mm,
having them bring us to church every day, every Sunday, and the Bible studies and all of those things, knowing that, if I had the choice myself, would I really be going here, on my
yeah,
own, and having to
yeah,
make that decision when I got to college of, all right, well, you're going out, Saturday night. What are the things that you're doing? What are the ways that, you're representing yourself, and are you representing Christ when you're out in those areas?
yeah,
And there were times that I was going back and forth. And I think that was when I realized that I couldn't continue to do that. So although I accepted Jesus into my life when I was like 11 years old, I rededicated my life to Christ after my sophomore year in college, because I realized
hmm
that I was neither I was neither hot or cold. I was that lukewarm Christian who's
mm,
like, hey, I can I can roll in my Christian group in the AIA group,
yeah,
but I could also go hard with my
sure,
guys over here as well. And so
yeah,
it is one of those things that you've got to decide, in life, like, hey, what is it that I want to do? How do I really want to represent? And that
hmm
is something that will be a continual and daily battle that we have to do.
mm,
We have to fight against our flesh each and every
that's
day.
right,
And even now, being married all of these years later with kids, and there's still a daily battle that you have to make sure we prepare ourselves for. And
Yeah.
I learned the tools and stuff then, but it doesn't mean it makes it any easier, or it doesn't mean that there are less challenges that come in your life
That's right.
as you continue to move forward. So I just appreciate the fact again of the Holy Spirit to be able to convict me and help me to see, what are those red flags? What are those things that are in
Yeah.
my life that I have to protect myself from?
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. I appreciate you sharing that. And, I think for some listening, you did certain things on the field that most people can't even do playing Madden, right? So you share the NFL record for the longest touchdown reception, right? It's 99 yards against the Bengals in '04. Maybe walk us through that play, and at what point in the sprint did you realize that you're making history, or did you not even think about that when you're in the moment?
It's so funny when you say that because I think for most people, like, you see the things that are out there and the assumption is, oh man, you knew you guys were at the 1 yard line and
Yeah.
you're running for the nine. It's like, man, no, I know we're backed up and I know we can't give up a safety right now. And so what can we do to give ourselves some breathing room?
Yeah.
I know a lot of times we say, oh man, every time I catch the ball, I'm thinking I'm going for a touchdown. Honestly, in that part, we need to get off of the goal line right now and we got to
That's
give
right.
ourselves
Yeah.
some space. But this was where we're taking a shot. This was one of those things. So I remember Jeff Garcia was our quarterback, and it was a rollout to the right hand side. And I was running a route called a comeback and go. And so it's probably about a 14 to 16-yard route where you fake a comeback, which is kind of like an out route, out coming back down your stem or coming back down
Yeah.
towards the quarterback. You fake that with a nice head fake, and then I have to cross the player's face and hoping that the defender bites the first fake that I do, and then that would get me open. And so I did it. I felt like I ran a good route. And there's something that as a receiver, when you run a good route and you got the guy, you're like, okay, now the ball just needs to be where it needs to be. And
Yeah.
so you look up in the sky. I saw it right there. He didn't put too much air under it. Perfect ball to be able to catch on the
Yeah.
run to kind of take me away from the defender. And then at that point, I just took one look back and I was like, man, he's like 5, 6 yards away from me. I'm like, oh, I'm gone.
Yeah.
I'm gone.
Yeah.
And so seeing that, like, okay, I know I'm running for a touchdown, but
Yeah.
I have no idea of like the how big this really is, realizing that this is a 99 yard. I just
Sure.
like, oh,
Yeah.
hey, we scored a touchdown. This is great. So you
Yeah.
go back to the sideline, yeah, the congratulations and everything. But then, people start coming up to you after that. And it's like, hey, man,
Mm.
that was a 99-yard. Like, man, that's only been
Yeah.
done a couple of times. And it really isn't until after the game when the reporters and the media come up to you and they share with you, what has just happened. You realize how major of a record that
Yeah.
is. And, I joke with my kids all the time, like, your dad might not have a gold jacket, but that record is going to be in the NFL history for all time. So
Yeah.
that's always a pretty cool stat to have.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. And then you have another one, right? That's in 2007, you tied the record for 2 kickoff return touchdowns in a single game. And so, we have, athletes and coaches that listen to this. And so maybe, what goes through a returner's mind in that, split second when you see, the hole open up? It is it, just pure instinct, or is there, preparation that goes into that? Is it kind of a mix of things? What's that like?
It's definitely a mix of things. You run, you're running in hopes that everything, like, you're going to get a big return or you're going to get a touchdown. But again,
Yeah.
those are split second decisions that are happening where I see the hole, I'm running towards it, and then all of a sudden a guy, lets go a little too soon, or a guy beats his block, and what I thought the hole was going to be open, all of a sudden it closes like
Yeah.
that. And sometimes, people can look at the game and look at the play and be like, "Hey, why didn't you just run outside?" And it's like,
Yeah.
well, it wasn't there. Like,
Yeah.
what your vision sees from your peripheral, the different color of the other jersey that you see, whether it's playing tricks on you or you really saw it, like you're going off of your split reaction in that
Yeah.
moment. And so you have the play that's called, you have to trust your blockers that are there, and on those plays, everyone did exactly what they were supposed to do. And so, I can't take credit all for myself on those things, because you've got 10 other guys that are out on the
That's
field
right.
having to
Yeah.
block guys and having to, follow up. It's not just that initial contact that you have to hold your guy. You got to hold them for a couple of seconds until I get through the hole to be able
Yeah.
to keep going. So there's so many things that happen. And, all it takes is one guy to either miss his block or not hold on too long, and that guy
Yeah.
tackled a returner. And, that's the difference between touchdowns and big plays. And so, on that first touchdown that I ran back, I remember it was a counter play to the left. And, those are always plays that I like because it gives me opportunity to get to the field. And I know if
Yeah.
I can get my stride and I can get my speed going, that there were very few people that would ever be able to catch me. And so,
Yeah.
um, again, I just remember going to the left side. My fullback, one of my lead blockers, getting a good block. I cut back up inside of him, and all I saw was grass towards the opponent's sideline. And so
Yeah.
at that point, I was just like, "All right, track speed, let's go."
Yeah.
And so you go and you realize again, for the football fans out there, if you're not if you're not close to the returner and you see a guy get into the open field, you have to say, "Can I get the angle?" and try to
Hmm.
meet him before he gets
Yeah.
to the end zone. And so that's where a lot of guys don't have that top end speed to be able to outrun everybody on the field. You might be able to
That's
outrun
right.
those guys that are close to you, but you've got to find that guy who is not worried about where you are. He's worried about where you're going. And so,
Yeah.
again, having that top end speed to be able to kind of outrun everybody on the play. And it's always fun to be able to look back on the play and you see everybody running their hardest, and you're just kind of
Yeah.
striding, running past them, or guys trying to dive at your
That's right.
feet, and you know that they're not going to catch you. And
Yeah.
so, the first play was amazing. And, it's already pretty special to have one kickoff return in a game.
Hmm.
And that ended the first half. And then, man, we're hyped going into halftime, excited about what just happened. And had no idea that we were getting the kickoff again to start the second half. And so this is maybe 12 minutes later that
Yeah.
this happens. And again, I remember this was in December, so the sun was coming in. We had the roof open in NRG Stadium. So in our stadium in Houston, they have a retractable roof. And
Yeah.
so I remember the sun being in my eyes and me catching the ball deep in the end zone. And so a lot of times my coach may have told me to take a knee, but I was just like,
Yeah.
I'm feeling kind of
No,
good. I'm
I'm
feeling kind of
feeling it
good
here.
right now. So if anyone watches this play, you can see me catch the ball and I kind of look down at my feet to see that I'm deep in the end zone. And I'm just like, I don't care. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm taking this out. And it was a middle return. And again, all the players, all my guys did great on the blocking, allowed me to find kind of the lane that was there. And I remember getting close to half field once I got around the kicker, and I could feel the lactic acid in my muscles starting to build up.
Yeah.
So anyone who's a track person or anyone who knows, when you start, when
Yeah.
you do strenuous activity and you start getting to the end where your legs start locking up or your arms start locking up, that's what I started to feel. But I also
Hmm.
saw open field and was hoping like,
Yeah.
please don't let anybody catch me. And so
Yeah.
when I got to the end zone again, it was one of those things where the moment I got into the end zone, I was overwhelmed at that point, where I was just like, Lord, like what in the world just happened? And I
Yeah.
felt like in that moment, that was a supernatural moment where, like, man, this is not me. In the midst of this moment right now, like the fact that
Yeah.
you allowed me to do this in a game, I'm pretty much back to back plays, was something that, like, Lord, just thank you for this opportunity and to be a vessel at
Yeah.
this point to have that all work out.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome. It's fun hearing you talk about that again, and especially for those that can't imagine having a decent top end speed. So, the uh, maybe maybe one more kind of football related question here. The NFL, it's obviously more pass heavy than it's ever been. Um, Looking at just kind of the speed and route running today, do you ever wish you were playing in the current era? Especially you mentioned not liking to be tackled, right? So, would you or did you kind of prefer the era that in style that you got to play in?
No, I'm very grateful for the era that I got to play in. I think again, I would probably say it's more off the field things that I'm glad I'm not a part of this generation than the
Sure.
last generation. I think the generation that we were a part of, man, the type of athletes that I got a chance to compete against are, man, so many Hall of Famers of guys who are
Hmm.
legends in this game, and to know that, man, that's who a lot of our current players model their games after, were those
Yeah.
guys. And it's funny to hear, being back a part of the Texans, hearing the guys that they're talking about now, where it lets me feel and lets me know how old I really am when they're talking about guys that they model themselves after. Man, like, I
Sure.
grew up watching you and this, and I played on Madden with you. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
man, y'all do realize that was like 20 years ago that it happened. So, um, again, it's still football, and I think it's really awesome to see just kind of the speed and the power of what happens. But I think people forget as well, like, man, there were a lot of fast guys back in the day
Mm.
as well,
Yeah.
and that could hit just as hard. And I think it's just it's amazing to see that it's not kind of a select few guys that were strong, fast, big. Like, that's everybody that you see out there now. But I think in our era, we felt the same way. We felt, going from college to the NFL, um, we felt that going from college to the NFL was like, man, everybody is the best of the best. And so
Yeah.
nothing has changed from that. It's still the best of the best at this level. These
Hmm.
guys just have much more resources to be able to take care of their body, to, the learning aspects of the resources of making sure that they
Yeah.
have all of the things that they need. They just have more resources of that. So we just had to be more resourceful back in the day to find the different things that would help us prepare both on and off the field
Hmm.
to get
Yeah.
ourselves ready. So I think that's really the biggest thing that's changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Maybe walk me through. You had a significant injury, right? That kind of led to the end of your career, and just how did you kind of handle that mentally? Going from being able to kind of do whatever you wanted with your body, kind of elite performance to your body starting to break down, and just what that did for you, just thinking about the place that football, had in your life, where, like you'd spent so much, time and energy and effort in, just thinking about, okay, what's next? Where's my, true identity, lying here? And, am I going to be okay? What was that like?
I would say the biggest thing I learned from that was I never realized how much pain can affect your personality.
Mm,
I think in the midst of that, yes, it's an injury, but you also realize that this is going to be a true change of season in your life. This is a life altering, event that's happening, and so I used to pray and say, like, all right, Lord, like, this, every year was a challenge of, all right, got to get yourself ready to play again. Are you sure you want to continue playing football? And you're like, man,
sure.
this is a good life that we're having right now. Let's try to do this as long as possible. But, I
Yeah.
prayed, like, Lord, please make it clear, when this is the end for me. Because if they keep giving me an opportunity, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to keep trying to do my best. And so when I dislocated my hip in the preseason, um, that was something that I thought I would be able to come back from. I thought I would just be on injury reserve, on IR for that season, and try to
Sure.
come back. And the hip never quite got better. And what made it even harder was after that season was over with, there was a lockout. And so at that point, players could not come back into the facility. You had to go to third party places to do your rehab and to get help. And at that
Sure.
point, I didn't have. They released me, and I didn't have the right uh, system and support in place to really be able to get myself ready. And some of the places that I went, I don't think gave me the right physical therapy to really
Hmm.
correct the hip. And so the hip got worse to the point where I was just really in a lot of pain, and it really had an effect on my wife. And at that point, I think we had just had our second child at that point, and so I think that the year before we just had our second child. So we had two young kids,
Yeah.
under the age of 3 in the home, and I was in pain all the time. And my wife didn't know how to really work with me in that sense, because everything she would do to try to help me, I would be very quick and short to the point and very
Hmm.
short tempered in a lot of those things. And it wasn't until later that she really was able to talk to me and let me know how difficult it was for her and the boys to just be around me, and didn't know how to help, me get through this.
Hmm.
And I didn't realize I was that short tempered in the midst of that. I just thought,
Sure.
like, all right, you supported me through all of this all the time. Like, just let me
Hmm.
deal with it. And she was
Yeah.
just like, nah, that's not how this works.
Yeah.
And so, with me not being able to get through that, it took until I think it was the following June after I got released, where I realized my hip wasn't going to get better. And when I went back to the doctor, they said I had no cartilage left in the hip and that I would need a partial hip replacement. And so, really, from the end of that season, dealing with that pain, trying to get back into family life and make that transition from football into family life was very difficult for me. I think I made it very difficult for my wife and boys to deal with me, and uh, that really stuck with me of realizing how pain can really affect someone's personality and affect how you respond and communicate with your family. And so um, ultimately at that point, I had to make that transition of into life of like, okay, well, what's next? What are we going to
Yeah.
do now? And that was where, man, a lot of conversation had to happen between my wife and I on what does this look like? Are we staying in Houston? Where are we going? Are
Yeah.
you going to go back? And, my wife is a veterinarian. She's a doctor. So are you going back to work? Where are we financially? Like all of these things
Hmm.
that, all of these years later that, man, it's finally come to an end. How do we move forward with this? And so I'm just grateful again for my wife and for the support of our family of being able to say, okay, here's how we're going to move forward, in this life of service, of philanthropy, of figuring it out. And
Yeah.
we were able to do that together.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. And maybe kind of to follow up there, you often say, as you did even in the intro, that you're a child of God, and often add who happens to play football rather than a football player who happens to be a Christian, right? And so for a young athlete who's listening to this, listen to what you just said. How do they find their value? Where do they find it? Where should they find it when the game eventually stops? Whether for them that's high school or college or otherwise.
Yeah, I think for me, I go to my favorite verse, Proverbs 3, 5, and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge him, and he will direct your paths. My value is in who God says I am. And I think
Yeah.
it's very, in this day and age, there are so many voices. There are so many people who want to speak into your life and say and think that they have the answer to make you happy or to give you joy. And often all of those things are things that are just temporary. And so I think we have to find those things in our life that what is the constant, what is the foundation that we want to build our life on. And for those of us who have trusted Jesus as their Lord and Savior, that's in Him. he's the one
Yeah.
constant that is always going to be there for you, is always going to guide you along the right path. And it's great to have earthly knowledge and earthly wisdom, but nothing surpasses the wisdom that Christ gives us through his word
Yeah. That's
in
right.
the Bible. And so to be able to have that, understand that, but ultimately able to apply it. There are too many people nowadays, I think, have the knowledge, but they're not applying it.
Yeah. That's
and,
right.
and that's where the wisdom really comes in. Like, there's a lot of people with knowledge, not a lot of people with wisdom.
Hmm.
And so, if we can continue to apply the things that Jesus has taught us through his word and through his actions and the way he did it, that's where we can truly find value. And that's where we will truly find joy and happiness, is in being able to serve him and allowing him to serve through us and use us and our experiences and everything that he has given us, whether they have been challenging. I think everything is for a reason. If you're still breathing and God
Yeah.
has you here, it's for a reason. No matter how you grew up, no matter what you've experienced, God can
Hmm.
use that, and God can redeem those things to be able for him to be glorified. And so I think for you to understand that everything that has happened to you for a reason, and you
Hmm.
have the ability to trust him and use those things to to share as a testimony and to bring others closer to him, because he's brought you this far and he's not going to leave you where you're at right now. He's going to continue to be able to bring you through until he calls us home. He's going to continue to give us work and opportunity and responsibilities to be able to glorify him through our actions, through our time, talent, and treasures, to be able to use those things to glorify him.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think with that too, just remembering Jesus's own words, right? That before he would, we're recording this on the week of Easter, Holy Week, that he would tell his disciples, right, that I'm going to send the Spirit, to be a comforter, to be a guide, and that's his way of saying, when he says, like, I'll never leave you nor forsake you, or the end of Matthew 28 in the Great Commission, like, with you always to the very end of the age, right? And so he's not unaware of what's happening, but he's actually planned these things for our good. And as we see in Romans 8, that we would be conformed to the image of Christ, right? And to be able to help others, even so Second Corinthians 1, for those who are suffering, right, the things we would go through, we'd be able to comfort them with the same comfort that we've received from the Lord. So I appreciate you sharing that. It's really comforting. Yeah. You had mentioned earlier, I want to come back to this because I think it ties in well here, of just, an order of priorities of, faith, family, and then football, right? A nice alliteration too. But maybe, why is it so difficult, particularly for coaches and athletes, the lives that they live, to maintain that order? And how do you help them keep that balance kind of between those three things?
Yeah, I think again, with coaches and players, they put so much pressure on themselves to perform, and in sports, it's all about performance, right? Like, to keep your job, you better be performing,
Yeah, that's
and
right.
people will, by any means necessary, that has to be the case. And so oftentimes, other things get left behind, and I think people have to understand that just to be good at football or to have great performance doesn't mean that you have to put God behind that, or that he falls second to that. The priority, again, like we talked about, is, I believe, faith, family, than football. And I think when we look at how what God has called us to make sure that we love the Lord our God with all of our heart, soul, and mind. Like, that's
Yeah,
first. Everything leads from that, and then everything else will fall into place. Our team chaplain, Mikado Henson, has shared this example with us, how oftentimes we say that, he uses a pie reference. And so we have all of these pieces of the pie of family and friends and vacation and football and
yeah,
all of these things, and faith. Here's our slice of faith. And so, how big is that slice? And people are like, all right,
yeah,
well, it's this big. And oh no, well, I really follow Jesus, so it's really this big. And
yeah,
he was just like, all right, what it should be like is Jesus is in all of it. Jesus is the
That's right.
crust. Our
That's right.
faith is the crust of it, and all of those other things fit in all of that. And so, to help guys have the perspective that, hey, guys, this is not something that you take on and you take off. This isn't, your game day wear that, man, on Sunday, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
gonna come with it.
That's right. Yeah.
It's like you walk into the stadium with Jesus and the Holy Spirit. Oh, but when I
Yeah.
cross the field, I got to turn that switch on, and I'm gonna turn into somebody else. It's like, no, you better bring Jesus with you out there on the field,
That's right. Yeah.
and I think we don't give God enough credit to understand what a competitor He is on being able to say no. Like, we talk about war. There's so much talked about as war in, spiritual warfare. And so I
Hmm.
think each and every day we've got to have that same kind of mindset of, all right, what are we coming out here to do? Like, our goal is kingdom building stuff. And this is
Yeah.
not a soft game for anybody. So I don't want anyone to think that, hey, when you accept Jesus into your life, then everything's nice and we're walking through
That's
flower fields
right.
and
Yeah.
Jesus is just going to be next to us. Like, no, we're in a
Hmm.
war. And, I want to have scars. I want to have, battles. And again, have the
Hmm.
confidence knowing that, no, we're trying to take people from hell and bring them to heaven. And that is our goal each and every day in what we do. And so,
Absolutely.
how can we give our players and our coaches the best opportunity to see the big picture and say, guys, this is a great sport. This is a great career that God has given us the opportunity to be a part of. But really, what's our ultimate goal here is to be able to
Yeah.
glorify Him through the excellence in which we do our job and we do our careers.
That's right.
And to be able to help them see that big picture to say, man, this is more than just a game for us to be out here. Like, this is an opportunity for us to use this game to glorify Him. And
Mm.
that is the thing that if we can continue to help guys to understand, like, man, it's not just a game, but man, look at this
Yeah.
as an opportunity that as we play, as God has given us the ability to play this game at such a high level, how can we now give the glory to Him when people ask us about the game, whether good or bad?
Yeah.
Again, everyone's praying for a win. Everyone realizes
That's
that,
right.
like, hey, listen, there are believers on the other side of the field too. So,
That's right.
it's funny to see that, but it's like, no, Lord, give us the ability to go out there to be healthy, to play this game to the utmost, so that when people finish this game, they will be able to see a level of excellence that they've never seen before. And when they ask, why do you play so hard? How did you
Yeah.
do these things? How did you deal with it? You can say, man, to the glory of God that He gave me the ability to go out there to perform at this level.
Yeah.
And whether it went great, here's the reason why. And if it went bad, guess what? God is still on the throne. Jesus is still on the throne right now,
That's
and
right.
He's going to help me learn from this. And I hope that, as we move forward, we're all going to be able to learn from this and be able to get better and,
Mm.
still be able to move forward.
Yeah. No, that's really good and helpful because I think there can be kind of I don't know, a sense I think with some that it's almost like, well, maybe Christianity will hold me back. My faith will hold me back from being able to, be excellent or pursue this to the extent that I want to. And that's just absolutely false, right? I mean,
Yes.
it's not true that actually you can experience greater joy and fulfillment in what you're doing when you see it as an act of worship, to the Lord, when you see it as a stewardship of the gifts that you've been given. And it may sound strange, but but you can also see it as, like an act of, of love in the sense of, how you're able to use that platform to lift others up, right? And to be able to serve others with the platform that you've been given. And so I think that you can be even more excellent, experience more joy, experience more fulfillment when you actually have, faith as that, foundation. And that's the lens that you see all of this through, is like, no matter how long this lasts, like, I want to bring glory and honor to the Lord, mostly because I'm so thankful for what He's done for me in Christ, but also because I realize that's the most joy that I can get out of this, as well, and it's the most good I can do with what He's given me. So I think that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also like the fact that I've heard someone use this example before as well of like our Christian walk, like you were saying, being able to be a believer is freedom. A lot of people think that, oh man, it's all these rules, but yet
Yeah.
everything else in life that we do has rules and has boundaries. And we don't have any issues with that. But then all of a sudden it comes
Yeah.
to our faith. Now all of a sudden we have an issue. And so, in the game
That's
of
right.
football, if there weren't rules, if there weren't lines set up for us to play within those rules, it would be
Hmm.
chaos, and no
Yeah.
one would enjoy it because there's everyone's just running all over the place. But all of a
That's
sudden
right.
you put it within these confines, and there's rules that are there, and there are flags that are thrown when you do things wrong to set you back on the right path. That's the same thing that the Holy Spirit does for us, and that the Word of God does for us, is that these are boundaries that are set up for us to be able to operate in freedom under these
That's
set
right.
guidelines that God has called us to. And I think we can have freedom when we get out there and do that, because there's still there's still so much that God gives us to be creative in the midst of that. And it's not, I feel like that's true freedom, rather than a whole world where there's no rules and no laws. And I had the
That's right.
opportunity to build one of a home of ours when I first got done playing. And for anyone who's had to go in and design a room or anything else, you know how crazy it is when you walk into that granite store and all you
Yeah.
see are slabs
That's
of
right. Yeah.
granite of everything. Or you go into the paint store and all you see is colors. Like, man, it
Yeah.
makes it so much harder when all of that's
It
there,
does.
compared to, hey, here's a booklet and here are 17 colors for you to choose from. All right, I can deal within those confines, and it helps me much
That's right.
more to be able to move forward in life instead of getting bogged down by, man, I just, I can do whatever it is I want. Like, no, I would much rather have some structure in how I live my
Mm.
life.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. That's good. In your current role with the Texans, you focus on player development and enrichment, and just curious, what's the perhaps biggest, or maybe a couple of things, off field hurdles that modern NFL players face today compared to maybe when you entered the league, and you wish that those who are maybe hypercritical, armchair quarterback, type of, thing going on, that you wish, like, others could understand, just kind of the amount of, pressure, kind of unique challenges that those players that you try to minister to face. What would you say are a couple of those things?
I'd say the main thing is social media. I think you may hear it all the time, you may not, but social
Yeah.
media is something where I'm so grateful that wasn't around back when I
Yeah.
played, because it's just like, man, it was enough just having the newspapers, write articles on you, and you go and, and I've had it
Yeah.
happen where I've had a bad game, and like, dang, why's my picture got to be on the front of the sports section for the wrong
Yeah.
reasons?
Yeah. Why they
And
got to do me
with
like
that,
that? Yeah.
you're right. And with that, it's like, man, I hope people ain't reading the newspaper today. Compared to now, it's like, wow, everything is looked at with a fine tooth comb. And man, from your body language on the sideline to whatever has been said, like, man, they
Hmm.
can replay that in real time over and over again. Everybody can comment on it, rather than it being me and you having to see each other and talk about it. Or, like we said, around the water cooler, that's the conversation that are
Yeah.
happening now. Man, even if you're not interested, guess what? It could end up on your timeline. And now you're
That's
reading
right.
something. You have no idea about this person. All you see is the headline and what's being said about them. And you automatically think that's true of that person. And so I can't imagine the type of pressure that our players are under. And again, I think a lot of these players currently, this is the world in which they've grown up in. And
Yeah.
so that is something, as a older gentleman, a more seasoned gentleman now,
Yeah.
you realize how old we get and how we see this and how it's going to affect our kids. And again, how it's affecting these guys in the locker room, how it's affecting coaches. Like, everybody has the
Yeah.
opportunity to make their opinion known. And so what used to just be a newspaper and some, sports journalists who are writing their opinions that's out there, now it's anywhere. And if someone says something
Yeah.
vulgar enough or critical enough, that becomes viral and that becomes the story. And now this
Mhm.
player, their family, their kids, their parents, everybody has to see this written about them, whether it be true or not true. And they have to deal with it. So, how can
Yeah.
we continue to put the support around our players, around our coaches, to help them know that these are just moments. This is not who you are. You have the support of your friends, your family, the people here
Yeah.
in this organization that were behind you. And, we all know the truth and what's going on right now. So that's where I think the encouragement, the support has to always be there. And I think that's why you often hear many teams say, it's us versus the world type of
Yeah.
mentality, is that they don't know what's going on behind the scenes. They don't know
Hmm.
how we're going about our business, how we're preparing for every game. And I would say this would probably be true for the majority of teams, whether it's a 2-15 team or a 15-2
Sure.
team. Like
Yeah.
everybody each day is going in there working their butts off to try to be a winner, to try to get that win each and every week. I don't think there are a lot of teams that are going out there and just like hanging up the towel and walking
Yeah.
around in practice. Like, no, guys are sweating, bleeding, going through
Yeah. That's right.
injuries, everything each and every day, and it just doesn't work out sometimes. So what can we do to continue to encourage each other? Because we're all in this thing together, and if one person is down, guess what? We better find a way to pick that
Yeah.
person up to make sure that no man's left behind.
Mm. Yeah. No, it totally makes sense. It can be really, really brutal. And I don't think anybody, would choose to have their life gone through, in that way. So I think we should have a little bit more compassion and humility when it comes to,
Yeah,
thinking about, and not everything you see is reality, right? I mean, there's so many
yeah.
things are spun for, clickbait and all those different things. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's a
I always
good,
tell people,
good word.
how would you feel if you had cameras, at your job and being able to follow
Hmm.
you around and let us now be critical of what you do? And
Yeah.
so, I think you've got some of those reality shows that are out there where you're like, oh man, one, it's very interesting. I think it's been
Yeah.
really interesting to see how some of these reality shows have gone out there. And when you now see what's actually going on, how easily we can be critical of other people in the jobs that they're doing. And
That's right.
again, I wish and I pray that others would have a little more empathy for players and coaches and the stuff and the pressure that they're under and the things that they go through. One, for all of our entertainment, but also realizing this is a job for a lot of these, for all of us that are here, and that we
Yeah.
are all going out there trying to do our best to present the best product for everybody.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Maybe as we're coming to the end of our conversation here, just a final question for you. If you could go back and sit down, with I'm just guessing here, 22-year-old you when at the draft is you're sitting there, it's 2002 or whatever. Uh, what's one piece of spiritual or professional advice that you would give yourself to prepare for the road ahead after looking retrospectively back in time here?
Yeah, this is a great question. Thank you for giving me prior notice on this one. So I've got a verse for this one, but it's pretty much pick up your cross daily. I
Mm,
think we've heard that term before, pick up your cross, but you might forget that word daily. This
yeah.
isn't just a
Yep.
one-time thing. And so it comes from Luke 9:23. If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. And so I think when I first got into the league, um, again, one, I still don't think I realized big of a how big of an opportunity this really, was for me to play. I
Yeah.
think for a lot of college players, you think it's just automatic. Hey, if I play well as a college player, I'm going to make it to the NFL and then I'm going to go play
Hmm.
for 10 years. And you realize,
Yeah.
like, man, no matter where you're drafted, it's still hard to get past, the 3.5 years, which is the
Yeah.
average for, football players. And when you think about that, if I was 22, then what, I'm 25 and a half,
Yeah.
26 years old, if
Yeah.
you play those 3 years, 3.5 years, and then what do you do with the rest of your life? And so from that moment, whether it be in football, whether it be in things off the field, I realized that, man, this is a battle. And that I need to take Jesus with me in everything that I do, and not leave him as a after fact or a leftovers, to say, all right, well, when this happens, then I'll call on Jesus. Well,
Yeah.
as long as everything's going good, then you know what? It's just hard work, discipline. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's like, I'm gonna go forward with that. It's like, that's fine and good, and yes, that's what we're supposed to do. But where is our faith in the midst of this? And do you realize where our gifts really are coming from, or do we take that for granted and think that it's just all on us? And so I think, yes, God calls us to be excellent in our work and to put forth our best effort, but I would be remiss for me not to realize, like, what all of the things that had to go into place for me to be in this position to begin with. And I
Yeah.
thank God for everything that has happened. You've heard the stories of people who've had very, very tough childhoods, and that was the reason and motivation to get them out of those places, to get themselves in this position. But you
Hmm.
also hear about guys who had every resource available to them, and both
That's
parents in
right.
the
Yeah.
household, and was great, and great academics, and they're here at this level as well. So what are
Hmm.
you going to do with that opportunity that you have? And to thank God for whatever it is, that's what's gotten you there, and that is going to be what allows you to speak to whatever audience God has intended for you. So the
Yeah.
people that I'm going to be able to speak to and be able to share my testimony with is going to be a very different group, Caleb, from the people that you're going to be able to
Yeah.
influence and have. And I think that's what's great about it, is that, man, God,
Hmm.
you have given me a specific and unique role and different people
Yeah.
to be able to reach. Now, how can I make myself available in those moments, to be available, to have discernment and wisdom to know when those opportunities come, and then to be bold in being able to share my faith in those moments. And so, again, to answer your question, pretty much to pick up my cross daily and follow Jesus each and every day. I know it's going to be a battle. Um, you know, yes, there might be some good seasons, some up seasons, but I know
Yeah.
there are also going to be some challenging seasons. But I can now have a different perspective as I go through those challenging seasons, knowing that the Lord is going to be with me. He's never going to leave me nor forsake me. And even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, it's just a
Hmm.
shadow. It's not gonna
Yeah.
take me out, but I know that you are with me. And I know that he's going to support me through those things. And oftentimes it's those challenging times that God's going to bring us through, that we're going to persevere through those things. We're going to be stronger for it. We're going to have more
Yeah.
perseverance. We're going to build our character. And these are all going to be things that God will be able to use through us to be able to, for him to get glorified for it in whatever way that he sees fit.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's a great word to end on. And so, Andre, thanks so much for joining me for this conversation. I pray that it's helpful for coaches and athletes to listen to it later on. So appreciate you, brother.
Thank you so much, Caleb.